Hello, my name is Danielle, and this is part 3 to talking about oppression. This video is specifically my testimony with oppression, or a piece of it. I'm sure I'll continue sharing my testimony throughout my videos, but first I want to start this by saying that sometimes the hardest battles we face aren't outside. They're on the inside. For years, I've struggled with self-hatred, low self-esteem, identity, and self-worth issues. I've lived most of my life in a state of heightened vigilance and anxiety. Waiting for the other foot to drop and questioning my environment seemed to be the resting state of my life. I had a persistent sense of worthlessness, shame, and a lack of trust in myself and others. Being questioned would only solidify inner negative beliefs and cause my character to feel like a burden. I lived constantly anticipating negative reactions and had a strong fear of people's opinions and or perceptions of me. I often looked to others to fill a hole in myself that I could not, to tell me that I was enough, I was loved, I was smart, to see my heart and my character. If they couldn't see it, or they viewed me as bad, then I would take that on, and it would just solidify the lies the enemy had been telling or whispering into my mind from a young age. My biggest trigger is when my intentions or character is questioned, especially by someone I have an emotional attachment to. And even more so when in a stressful or perceived adversarial setting. I would be significantly challenged with heavy emotional dysregulation, trauma responses, and spiritual warfare when confronted with these things. My internal dialogue was relentless. Thoughts would whisper, "You're worthless, you'll never be enough, you're a burden, no one will ever love you." For many years, these were just thoughts. They would visit and torment me, or make me cry, put me in a bad mood. I'd believe them, agree with them, and allow my anger towards myself to be directed at others. I tore through my life and relationships with my tongue. My anger stemmed from deep wounds mixed with self-hatred, fear, anxiety, low self-esteem, and were often amplified when triggered. I've dealt with struggling to control my trauma responses most of my life, like since a young kid, and often have associated my identity with them, which has brought tremendous shame. I would believe if others could not see my heart or know my true intentions, then they must be right? My confidence in who I wasn't there, and it was so easily shaken by other people's opinions. My mind was my prison. These struggles weren't every day and were heavily related to feeling triggered. I could go a year without an issue, but if somebody I loved stood up against me and said something that went against my character, my whole sense of self would feel shaken, and I would become overwhelmed with what I now understand and know to be oppression. They hate you. They'll never love you. No one will ever understand you. They probably think you're weird or annoying, thoughts like that. These kinds of lies are especially sneaky because they pretend to be your own thoughts, but they're really just whispers meant to isolate you. I remember one moment vividly. After God found me, the enemy fought even harder to keep me. Instead of facing battles of insecurity in my mind, I now faced a war for my soul. I remember standing in the middle of an argument, listening to my inner critic completely destroy me. I felt defeated, tired of arguing my side, tired of trying to get them to understand my heart, tired of standing up for myself, tired of never being seen, or I felt. I remember staring at the wall next to me as thoughts of negative self-image and hatred towards myself spewed through my mind and piled on top of any strength I had left to fight it. It completely devoured my mind and consumed me in a darkness that I could not get out of. I remember the moment I agreed with it and thinking this will be the rest of my life. I'm worthless. I ruin everything. I'm better off gone. I can't do anything right. God's probably disappointed in me. My inner dialogue even began to mock me. Look at you. You can't even help one person understand. And now you're shaken. You think you're so special. Where's your God now? I remember the weight of these words. I remember the mocking spirit that felt like myself. I remember looking at the wall next to me and the image that crossed my mind of me hitting my forehead into that wall. And I remember the moment where I said yes and agreed that that is what I deserved. I put my hands on the wall and I banged my head into it. I banged my head into the drywall. Not just once, but I think I bang. I have never done this before in my life. I mocked myself out loud for the early videos I made on here. The people I've talked to or tried to help, the strides forward in life I had been proud of. That was a new one. And boy, did it bring a whole new level of shame. After I did that, I fell to the floor and began repeating out loud the things that had always been in my mind. I completely gave in to oppression. I was so deeply sad, hurt, and defeated. And even through all of that, God was there saying, "Come to me," quietly in the background. I couldn't answer, though, until I calmed down. I didn't feel like I could face him or even that I deserved him. I felt so much shame. I didn't even know how to go to him afterwards. But what was amazing is when I did, he told me, "This fight is not yours. It's mine." He basically told me that I don't have to carry this weight and that he's not ashamed of me. He held me as I sobbed. He quieted my mind. And he replaced my insecurities and my deep wounds with his truths. He reminded me gently to come to him next time, to step away and give my feelings to him. He began kind of training me, which I would say he's still doing because I'm breaking a lifetime of internal habits right now. I've learned since that the Bible warns us that the enemy can only work where there's permission. When we agree with lies, speak them out loud, or dwell on them, we open the doors for oppression. Every word I said, every thought I entertained was giving the enemy foothold. When God pulled me out of that pit, I didn't come up clean. I came up with things still clinging to me. Old wounds, old lies, old habits, like mud stuck to my clothes and weeds tangled around me. Salvation pulled me out of the darkness, but I still needed deliverance and pruning. Deliverance cuts away the enemy's grip, and pruning shapes me to look more like him. It's like being rescued from a shipwreck. You're safe on shore, but there's still water in your lungs and chains on your ankles that God needs to remove. Deliverance is only the start of freedom. It doesn't automatically transform our minds or habits. We have to actively reject lies and renew our minds with God's truth. Being pruned and delivered is the process, and walking in freedom is the fruit. Thanks for listening.